Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. Welcome. This is the first session of Fire Dev Days, June 2021, the US edition. My name is Weistra. I work with Firely. I'll introduce myself better in a moment, but thank you very much for joining. This is the first session we have, actually pre-conference agenda. Find your way around Dev Days. We want to give you an overview here of all the important things on the program, how you can get the most out of the program itself, out of the networking, and also how you can get hooked into the Fire community. So especially if this is your first time joining Dev Days, that's a really great thing of you to come here because you're making the most of your event already. My name, Mark Weistra. As I mentioned, work at Firely. There I am the content lead for this conference, Fire Dev Days. We organize this twice a year. And also I am the product owner for our Fire data modeling tools. So Firely is, unlike many people think, not just an event company. We're mainly a tools company. We build all kinds of tools around Fire. We've been with the Fire community since the beginning. Building the .NET implementation of Fire and all kinds of tools around that, our Fire server. And I'm more responsible for the other side where we build data modeling tools. So Forge, desktop editor, Simplifier, the collaboration platform, and Firely terminal, the command line tools. You don't need to remember all of that. They're all in the program this week. And Firely organized this conference together with HL7. And I'm here to give you a flying start. So what's the goal of this session? We want to empower you to make the most of Dev Days and also the most of the Fire community. I will go over some highlights of the agenda, tell you where to find it, how to plan the agenda, what kind of sessions there are, how to get in. And then I will tell you all about the networking, how you can, we're virtual, so it's harder to find people. So you really need to put an effort in finding people, talking to them, get to know them. Because a large part of Fire is not just the spec. The spec is nice, the tool is nice, but it's really the people you meet, and interoperability is really about collaborating with other people, building trust, working together, wanting to work together. So this is the right place to meet all the important Fire people. Graham, everyone who's anything in the Fire community is here. And then I also want to tell you a bit about after Dev Days, how you can stay in touch, how you can prepare for the next Dev Days, how you can stay in touch with the Fire community, etc. There's two sessions that I want to highlight that are really complementary to this one. So if this is your first event, you really want to think to join the next session directly after this. Simone Heckman from HL7 Germany, from Givira, she's a consultant there. She's going to give an introduction into Fire itself. I'm not going to cover that, I'm just going to cover the event. But she's going to show you all that you need to know for the Fire spec itself. And then you can build with other sessions during this event. Another one you don't want to miss is the one from Lloyd McKenzie, which is at 1 p.m. On navigating the Fire community. So he is very deep. He's one of the big Fire guys. And he is really deep into HL7 and how the entire standards change process works. So he can explain all of that to you. And then, okay, let's get to the program. Because this is, of course, what we're here for all the great content that's on the agenda. We have over 130 sessions, 4 days, 5 parallel tracks. So there's a lot that you can see, but there is also a lot that you will miss live. You just need to make choice of what you want to see live. And I'm going to help you to plan a bit for that. So first of all, what you're seeing here is the PDF agenda. So if you've just looked into Whova, you might not have seen the PDF agenda yet. You can go to devdays.com and then click on the event for this moment. And there you can see, scroll a bit down, you can see the PDF agenda. That one is really useful. You can just, well, put it in your PDF editor or print it. And there you can easily see which sessions are in parallel. So you can choose which one you're going to attend live. Circle them, cross them out. You need to choose which ones you're going to attend live. Of course, as an attendee, you will have access to all the recorded sessions and all the slides. So you can always watch the other ones back later. So you need to choose really, especially based on where do you want to be live and where do you want to ask questions live, because the speakers are always attending live and available to your questions directly there. So think about that when you plan your agenda. The PDF one is nice for that, but definitely you've reached the session already via Whova, so you know about Whova. And that's a really nice place to build your agenda. So Whova, I'm looking at the web app here. If you haven't found the link to the web app yet, well, this slide deck is available already to download from the session that you're currently looking at. So all these links are clickable for you there. Also go to the web app on your desktop. On mobile, they're both quite on par by now, so you can use either of them. But what's really useful is that on every session here, and let me just move the video a bit out of the way here, you can click add to my agenda. So when you add this to your agenda, first of all, it will show up in my agenda here. So you can nicely filter all the sessions that are relevant for you. And it will also give you the option to add it to your agenda. So you can add it to your Google Calendar or download one of these ICS files that you can upload in your Outlook calendar. I would really recommend you to do this before the day starts, because after that, the sessions keep rolling 5 at a time, and you will need to make very quick choices. It's really useful if you're already thought out where you want to go at every given time, so you don't miss any of the live events. One thing that Whova also has on top of the PDF agenda is, of course, that it's always up to date. We put all our changes in there. So if any session happens to be canceled, or if it happens to be rescheduled, or if it will not be recorded, then that's all indicated in Whova. And speaking of which, as I mentioned, you'll get access to all of the recordings, except when they're not recorded. And that's with very few talks. Some speakers don't allow us to record the session. And when that's the case, that will also be highlighted within Whova. So that's another thing you might take into account when you start planning your agenda. And that's why you also need to do this before, because you can't watch them back later. I'll come back to the recordings at a later moment and tell you exactly how and when and how long you can get those. DevDays agenda, there's really kind of a separation of 2 different types of talks on the DevDays agenda. And everything you will reach via Whova. They're all in the agenda, so that's your one-stop shop. And then some of them will go to the Zoom embedded in Whova. That's what you're looking at now. I'm talking to you via Zoom, and that's either you see that in the Zoom app or you see it embedded in Whova. And that's the case for all the main content. So all the tutorials, let's builds, etc. They're all in there. And actually also the yoga. I'll come back to all of these points in a later slide. And then there's another set of talks, which will be more the social kind of content, where we try to interact with each other. And they're all in spatial chat, and those are not being recorded. And you see a little preview of how that looks here. So those 2 types of sessions, and let's first start with the main content. So these are all in Zoom, and they're all being recorded. We start every day with a keynote, and on Thursday we also have an end keynote at the end of the day. They're really meant as inspirational sessions. So we have some people from outside the FHIR community generally, people talking like Alan Mustard. Today we'll be talking about OpenStreetMap. It's a really nice open source community trying to build a standard for mapping data, and also trying to liberate that from the big tech giants, not unlike FHIR is doing for healthcare data. So very inspirational in that sense, and also community-wise. And similarly, we have people talking from Matrix, from the interoperability standard in social media and messaging later. So that's every day, starting every day at the end of Thursday. And we also have the patient and the doctor track in there, which I'll come back to. And then the meat of the conference is really tutorials and let's build and fix with FHIRs. So tutorials are educational presentations. They're 45 minutes long, and some expert from the community will generally talk on one of the core concepts of FHIR, like the FHIR API or how to model data in FHIR. These kind of things are all tutorials, 45 minutes long, including a 10-minute Q&A where you can ask any of your questions. That's really sending, so they will have a lot of information coming your way. And then in the Let's Build, that's really where you can get your hands dirty. And there will be hands-on exercises. Generally, they follow up from a tutorial. So it's really good to look at combining both the tutorial. So you have all the knowledge that you need to apply within your Let's Build session. It's also 45 minutes long, including Q&A. And they might have some prerequisites. So you might want to go into the sessions and see if there's any prerequisites, anything you need to install beforehand. And then finally, Fix with Fire. They're a bit shorter talks, and they are really focused on real-world implementations. So this is not someone explaining you about the questionnaire resource, but this is really someone showing you, this is how we use the questionnaire resource in our specific hospital, in this specific use case, and this is how we applied it and the problems we ran into, etc. So that's a 20-minute talk, including 5 minutes Q&A. And there will always be live there to answer your questions. So as I said, this is the main content, all in Zoom via Whova, and all being recorded for you to watch back, unless these very specific cases where people have indicated in Whova also that they do not want to be recorded. Then for the social side of things, we have a lot going on. So we're really trying to make this an interactive event too. First of all, we have meet and greets. Generally, we try to make sure that everyone who is a keynote speaker or a doctor speaker or a patient speaker will also have a meet and greet on the agenda. So when you have this very inspiring keynote, it's short. There might be a few questions from a moderator there. But then in the meet and greet, you can really walk up to them. Really in spatial chat, you can really walk up to people and ask them questions, anything that you want. So this is a great opportunity to come close to these inspiring speakers. Those are the meetings with the keynote speakers. And then on the fireside chat, that's very similar, but then that's a way to get up close and ask questions to the big names in FHIR. So these are people like Graham, who's of course the founder of FHIR, Josh Mandel from Microsoft, James Agnew from Smile CDR, etc. So you can meet them in person and ask any question that you have. And of course, you can also reach out to them on Zulip, but this is a nice way to get to know them. Pub talks. On the end of today and the end of tomorrow, we have a pub talk, and that's a new kind of interactive session. We haven't had those before, but it's shaping up to be really exciting. So there's 2 parallel pub talks on both days, and we have asked some major people within the community to prepare their own stance on a kind of a controversial statement, like is R5 going to be the final FHIR version? Or, well, what is the best data model? Is it OMOP or OpenEHR or FHIR? And these kind of discussions, they will prepare a discussion, but you can join in there. It's really meant as a replacement for the conference bar conversations we normally have. And in there, you can join them and speak up, raise your hand, speak up, ask them questions, give your own opinions. A really nice way to interact with them. And we hope it just diverges into a nice, good conversation over drinks, and we'll all socialize and go home happy. Then this happens in Spatial Chat, as I mentioned. What's going on all the time in Spatial Chat is the lounge. So my colleague Matthijs will be hosting you there. You can always, if there's nothing on the agenda, for example, or if it's just between sessions, or if you have any questions, like you can't get into a session or these kind of things, you can always walk into the lounge and ask Matthijs, hey, can you help me with this? Or just have a nice conversation, see who's there. The social event will be at the end of Wednesday. So the pub talks will be end of Monday and Tuesday. End of Wednesday, we have this social event where we have a musician, entertainer, Dave Rudolph, who will be bringing his guitar and will give us a nice conversation and a nice entertainment called The British Re-Invasion. You can join him, you can listen to him, and there will also be parallel just another room where you can go to have a nice conversation and bar. So this is all social stuff that is happening in Spatial Chat. And then one nice thing that is happening in Zoom, but not being recorded and is really part of the social content, is the yoga. This happens every day Ikelien Buurman has been with us for many Fire Dev Days conferences in person and virtually. She's coming from New York and will give you yoga based on specific muscle parts. So one is on the neck. I think today will probably be on the back, if I'm not mistaken. Really important because we'll be sitting for 4 days in a row to get some movement in between. And you'll find these in the agenda. Good, so that's the different types of sessions that are on the agenda. And then we try to also lengthwise try to organize them a bit in some coherent tracks. So you'll find a lot of tracks when you open the drop down with filter by tracks for in Whova in the agenda. And a lot of them will be quite self-explanatory, like whether it's advanced or it's beginner or all the different types I just talked about with you. And then there's a few tracks that I want to highlight. So one of them is the patient track. And we've been running this since, I think, 2018, when e-patient Dave walked up to the Firely team and said, hey, where's the voice of the patient in this conference? And ever since, we've been having him and patient speakers on in the agenda, who will be sharing how they're taking control of their own data. And they're really the end users of the Fire stuff that we make. If they don't like it, if it doesn't help them, it's all useless what we're doing. So we're listening to them and they will bring their perspective in multiple talks during the agenda and also a roundtable at the end of the agenda on Thursday at the end of day. And new this year, we're also adding doctors, another of the end users of our system. And there's 4 doctors, quite technical doctors, who are also trying to get control of the data that they need to work with, how to prevent burnout for doctors, etc. They will have 4 talks also in the plenary session every start of day and end of day of Thursday. So those are really nice thematic plenary sessions. There's also meet and greets with them if you want to learn more about them. And then there's 2 other tracks that we try to organize. One is really here for if your boss sent you here to build a Fire app, then you probably want to run into the Let's Build a Fire app track. And those will focus on a different type of languages. So if you're a Java programmer, you will want to join Patrick Werner and James Agnew tomorrow, who will do 2 sessions back to back on how to program with the Java open source libraries for Fire. Similarly, Miriam, who is also moderating this session, together with Marco, my other colleague, will do a session tomorrow on .NET. If you're a C#.NET programmer, you'll want to join them on how to learn to develop with Fire. And then on Thursday, we have Brian Caney from Monster doing the same for JavaScript-based TypeScript Fire development. So this is really for the app developers. So people who will take in Fire and API and will build a nice app on top of that. And then for the data modelers, there's a similar track called the Let's Build a Fire spec track. And this is really building a Fire specification. So customizing Fire to your own specific needs. And this will start with, well, the explanation of Fire, the explanation of how to profile Fire, how to model it for your use case. And then there's a lot of hands-on sessions there too. Just like in a Let's Build a Fire app track, hands-on sessions where you can learn how to profile it with Forge, how to profile it with Fire shorthand, and then how to create your documentation around that, what we call an implementation guide in Fire, or how to publish the results of Fire package to the Fire community to work with. So if you're one of the data modelers and want to build your own Fire specification, this is the track you really need to look at. So just go to these tracks, uncheck the rest, just check the track that you're interested in and add those to your agenda if this is what you're interested in. Sponsors, of course, very important. Wouldn't be possible to hold these events without them. Microsoft is our platinum sponsor, and they will also have a sponsored session tomorrow, again, before the event, so similar timing as this. They will talk about Fire Fusion, analytics on combined clinical and imaging data. And then all of the sponsors, AWS and all our bronze sponsors here, will have booths within Whova. So if you go in Whova to the exhibitors or exhibitor showcase in Whova, depends on whether you're in the web or the mobile app, you will see all their booths, you will see information about them. And there's also, if just looking at these interesting companies doesn't motivate you. There's also a lot of raffles and things you can win from them. I think I've seen an iPad, AirPods, drone. So check it out, see what they have to offer. You can talk to them. They all have booth staff to talk with you. And if you visit enough of them, you can also join in the Passport Challenge, where you can win a $100 Amazon card. I see there's a raised hand. I'll keep the questions until the end if you don't mind. There's enough time for Q&A. We'll definitely have time for those. So please, yeah, keep your question in mind. On Wednesday at 11 a.m., so just before the keynotes, there's a virtual booth tour. So this is especially a good time if you want to talk to one of these sponsors and check out what they have to offer. There will be booth staff available to talk to you. Whew, okay, so that's the agenda. Long story, because there's a lot on the agenda. And then really on the social side, the networking side, I want to show you what's all possible there. So of course, again, I'm starting with Hoova here on the left. You've probably seen the icebreakers. So the app will ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. And this is really important because it's hard to meet new people. So please tell something fun about yourself and look at the introductions of the rest. It's a great way to have a starter when you meet them somewhere in one of the events. Then there's a community board where you can do all kinds of discussions on any topics. You can also create your own topics if there's any questions you'd like to specifically ask in DevDays here. You can one-on-one chat with all the other participants. So if there's one specific person that you always wanted to know about, this is something you can reach out to. You can organize your own meetups. If there's a specific group of people from a specific company or a specific interest, feel free to share your own Google Meet link or something. Create a nice meetup. And what we also like a lot if you share images. So it's, of course, we're not together, so it's hard to take nice group pictures, but people can still share their own. This is our team pictures here, or people from other people, or hang out together, share some images, and then that'd be nice. So we have some memories here. That's really Hoova. So this is really specific for the conference, and this will also generally be gone after the conference. So it's really meant for during the conference. What you really want to know, and Lloyd will tell you more about this too, but you will want to know Zulip if you're new to this Fire community. Chat.fire.org is built on Zulip, and it's a very impressive, large message board where you can talk to anyone else in the Fire community. And the most important channels you want to know is social, where you can post anything, just nice conversations, and implementers. A lot of people ask questions here like, hey, I'm thinking about modeling this specific use case. Is this a good way to do it? And I guarantee you that within the day, you will have answers from the highest people within the Fire community. So we're a really nice place to socialize. As I, of course, mentioned, spatial chat. That's a really great way during this conference to go. The lounge is always open. Matthijs is there. So there's always someone to talk to, and all the pub talks and the bar will be there. And then if you're on social media, I've seen a lot of people share already. We appreciate that a lot. Let other people know that you're at the conference, that you're interested in Fire, and then we'll be able to find each other there. So Twitter and LinkedIn use the hashtag FireDevDays. So that's about during this conference. And then, of course, you want to take all this information that you've learned and apply it after the conference. So because you're a participant of this conference, you will have 6 months of exclusive access to all the content from the conference. That will no longer be in Hoova at that point. So the recordings and the slides generally we try to make them available in Hoova, like half an hour before the presentation. And we upload all the recordings at the end of the conference day. So the next day you can watch back anything that you've missed from yesterday if you want to prepare for the next day. But after the conference, we take all of this content and we put them on Vimeo or in a specific Dropbox folder. You'll get an email about that. It's no longer in Hoova, but you will have 6 months exclusive access to that. And after that, we take all of this content and make it publicly available to the world. So you might have seen our YouTube channel already, DevDays YouTube channel. There's content for years in there from all our previous 10 events. And they're all visible there. And after half a year, we will also put the conference content from this event in there. So that's for all the content from the conference. As I mentioned, get your account on chat.fire.org so you can stay in contact with the community on Zulip. Feel also free during this event to ask questions on chat.fire.org. That's a really great place for all your Fire questions. So you don't necessarily need to limit that to the Whova app itself. And then, of course, there's more events. So HL7 has these working group meetings and the Fire Connectathons. Those are really the meetings where people change the Fire standard. So if you have a gripe with a specific resource, you don't like how it's modeled, this is a place where you can go to make changes to that. Fire DevDays is much more focusing on learning and sharing and networking, those kind of things. Again, this is something that I'm sure Lloyd will touch in the introduction to the Fire community later today. As I mentioned before, DevDays, we organize this twice a year. So you're currently at the US event. And then in November, we're organizing the more global event, which is DevDays Amsterdam. So this will be the week of November 15. And then next year, the same DevDays US will be June 6 to 9. So you can book this in your agenda already, because also there will be a return discount for people who have attended previous DevDays. Let's see. Yeah, so there, of course, if any of your questions are not answered yet, well, of course, you can ask the questions now in the chat and in a moment when I raise the Q&A. But we also have an FAQ page on devdays.com at our specific event. So definitely go there. All your questions will be answered there, like when do I get the recordings? I have troubles with getting into Zoom or Whova, or what do I need to do? All those questions are answered there. So definitely check that out. If you run into anything which isn't answered there, always go to our spatial chat lounge if you can reach it still. Matthijs, as I mentioned, our support colleague is there and will always be able to help you, get you in touch with the right people, or advise you where to go, which specific session for your interest, these kind of things. And then via Zulip, we have also a special channel called DevDays Support, so you can ask us there. Or if everything is broken and only email still works, you can do meetings at hl7.org and reach out there. You can reach out to me if you have any specific questions to me via my email, Twitter, or via Whova directly. And I think with that, we open it up to the Q&A. And I'd like to ask Miriam if you have any specific questions. I see people have raised their hands. But...
yeah, we did have a couple of questions in the chat, most of which were answered already, but there's one question asking, where can I find the slide deck to download? Because you mentioned the slide deck was already available. Oh. Yeah, so... I
think, but I haven't actually checked. Maybe people can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I added it to the current session in Whova. So I would expect it to see it in Whova. I'm just checking it live now. Well, actually, maybe I don't see it either. Good. So I'll get back to you on that. And I'll add it. I'll make sure it's added at least after this session, within a few minutes after this session. Yeah, great point.
Yeah, so.
Any next questions, or shall I ask anyone who has their hand raised? Miriam, any other questions? Or?
Yeah, just coming in the Zoom chat, someone asking here, I am in another time zone. Can I go through the recording tomorrow for the sessions I missed, but watch them in my time zone?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we try to get the recordings from every session up at the end of the conference day, which generally means, so Validar, Jeremy is helping us here. Validar will upload those sessions at the end of their conference day, which is like US West Coast time. So if you're in a different time zone, for example, I'm in Amsterdam. If I would want to watch this session tomorrow, it will be up by my morning.
Yeah, and then you can choose whenever you want to watch it, of course. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. During the presentation, by the way, Wart, I think you said something about the Let's Build sessions for, they are actually today, not tomorrow. And you might have mentioned tomorrow. I got a message from someone pointing that out. So they are today.
Thanks for correcting me.
If you working with .NET, I hope to see you there.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions? I don't see any raised hands anymore. Might be just me. Good. Well, I'll just put up the slide again with where you can go if you have any other questions. And then if there's no more questions, then I thank you very much for attending this session, for attending the Fire DevDays conference. And I look forward to talk to you in the lounge. I think I'll just head out to the lounge after this. So I look forward to meet you there and socialize. Good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Wart.